Let's get right into it. Number 10, the brain's roller coaster addiction. Picture this. You voluntarily hand over money to sit in a dark room where a stranger on screen is about to get his face chewed off by something with way too many teeth. Your palms sweat, your heart pounds, and your stomach is screaming, "Hey, is this a car crash? Are we dying right now?" And yet, you love it. That, my friend, is your brain being a thrill junkie with the worst judgment ever. The reason horror feels so magnetic is because your brain treats it like a carnival ride. Adrenaline floods your system. Your heart rate spikes like you've just seen your crush walk in with someone hotter. Your body releases dopamine, the feel-good chemical, at the exact same time it's whispering, "Oh no, you're in danger." It's basically the neurochemical version of binging spicy food. Painful in the moment, but somehow addictive. Here's the kicker. Your amygdala, the brain's built-in alarm system, doesn't really know the difference between an axe-wielding maniac in a movie and an axe-wielding maniac in your kitchen. Well, unless your life is really eventful. To your body, both situations set off the same chain reaction. But since you're safe in a theater or your living room, your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, steps in and says, "Relax, it's just Netflix. No one is going to crawl out of the TV, probably." That combination of fear plus safety is like a neurobiological two-for-one deal. You get the thrill of danger without the actual threat. That's why horror fans are basically adrenaline hobbyists. They're chasing the same high as skydivers, bungee jumpers, or those people who swim with sharks for fun. Translation, people who trust their insurance policy way too much. But the story doesn't end there. Your memory system also plays a role. When you survive a horror movie, your hippocampus essentially throws you a party. Congrats, you lived. Have some extra dopamine points for bravery. That's why people walk out of theaters buzzing, laughing, or weirdly energized, because their brain is celebrating fake survival like they just won the Hunger Games. The irony? Horror is basically stress cosplay. You're simulating disaster in the most inefficient way possible, through overpriced popcorn and surround sound. But your nervous system eats it up, because it loves a good practice run for danger. It's like your brain is saying, one day a zombie might break through this door, and when it happens, at least you'll know how to scream efficiently. In short, horror works because your brain is a masochist. It's addicted to the roller coaster of fear, safe in the knowledge that no one is actually dragging you into a basement. Unless, of course, you're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre alone in an actual basement. Then, good luck.
Number 9, the paradox of pleasure and pain. Now, let's talk about the absolute circus act happening in your nervous system when you press play on that slasher film. It's called the paradox of hedonic reversal. Fancy words, simple idea. Pain can sometimes feel good. And no, that's not just about the weirdos who order the spiciest hot wings for fun. It's about your brain doing emotional gymnastics. When you feel fear, your sympathetic nervous system slams the panic button. Heart racing, skin crawling, pupils dilating like you've just spotted free Wi-Fi. Fear is uncomfortable. It sucks. But here's where it gets creepy. Once the threat is gone, your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode, kicks in and you feel intense relief. That relief itself is pleasurable. It's the same reason people enjoy jumping into icy water during polar bear plunges or watching videos of zit popping. Yeah, don't lie, you've watched at least one. The discomfort sets you up for the sweet, sweet rush of it being over. Horror is basically an emotional slingshot. It pulls you into terror and then lets you rebound into relief. The higher the fear, the bigger the bounce. Science calls this benign masochism, which is exactly what it sounds like. Your brain enjoys flirting with things that feel bad, but are secretly safe. Think about roller coasters, haunted houses, or eating wasabi. Nobody genuinely enjoys the pain of wasabi shooting up their nose, but the kick of surviving it, that's the payoff. Horror works on the same principle, just with fewer tears and more fake blood. There's also a strange evolutionary logic here. Our ancestors who practiced being afraid of danger, whether through storytelling around a fire or scary rituals, probably had a survival advantage. Their bodies got used to stress responses in a controlled environment. Watching horror today is like running a disaster simulation, except with better special effects and way worse acting. And here's where it gets darker. Horror can actually increase bonding. When you watch a scary movie with friends, your brains sync up through a shared stress response. You laugh, you scream, you grab each other's arms like you're reenacting Titanic. That shared adrenaline makes you feel closer. In fact, couples who go on scary dates report higher attraction levels afterwards, which means yes, horror movies are basically free couples therapy, minus the insurance paperwork. So, why do we love horror? Because pain and pleasure are tangled together like Christmas lights in an attic. You can't always tell them apart, but your nervous system insists they're worth unwrapping. It's weird, it's irrational, and it's exactly why you'll watch a 2-hour movie about demon possession and then need to pee with the hallway light on for a week.
Number 8. The safe danger illusion. Imagine strapping yourself into a roller coaster. The safety bar locks in, your heart says, "We're about to die," but your brain whispers, "Relax, OSHA probably approved this." That's exactly what happens during horror. Your body believes in danger, but your mind knows you're safe. It's the psychological equivalent of play fighting with a cat. Painful, but not fatal. Psychologists call this the protective frame. It's the invisible bubble that lets your mind enjoy horror without spiraling into genuine trauma. You know it's fake. Even as the screen fills with shrieking ghosts, part of your brain is like, "Yep, just pixels and sound waves, we're fine." That contradiction, your body screaming run while your brain says chill, creates a weird cocktail of tension and thrill. This illusion of danger without danger explains why horror is so addictive. It's like emotional VR training. You get to practice for disasters without the messy paperwork of, actually dying. Think about haunted houses. You walk through dark hallways, some teenager in makeup leaps out with a chainsaw, and you scream like your soul just quit your body. But 10 seconds later, you're laughing because deep down, you know the chainsaw doesn't even have a blade. Here's where it gets stranger. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between real and fake stimuli in the moment. That's why horror is effective. The same surge of adrenaline that would flood your system during an actual burglary happens when a jump scare hits. Your brain only calms down later when it remembers, "Oh wait, this isn't a crime scene, it's Hulu." Evolution probably designed us this way for practice. Think of it like running fire drills, but for your emotions. Scary stories around campfires in ancient tribes weren't just entertainment, they were survival rehearsals. This is how you feel when danger approaches. Get used to it, kids. Today, horror movies are the modern fire drill, except instead of preparing for saber-toothed tigers, we're preparing for demonic nuns. Progress? And of course, the illusion of safe danger is why horror thrives as group entertainment. You huddle with friends, your collective fear bouncing off each other like Wi-Fi signals. You scream, then laugh, then scream again. Your bodies are rehearsing panic together, which is both ridiculous and kind of brilliant. It's why people say horror is best experienced in a theater. Shared fake danger feels more real and therefore more fun. So, yeah, horror is basically emotional CrossFit. It hurts, it's uncomfortable, but you walk out bragging about how you survived. And just like CrossFit, there's always that one friend who takes it way too seriously and insists you don't get it unless you've tried it. Number 7. Dopamine junkies in disguise. All right, let's talk about the real drug running through your veins when you watch horror. Dopamine. Yep, your brain is basically a shady dealer handing out hits every time you willingly scare yourself. And like any addict, once you get a taste, you want more. Here is how it works. When you're scared, your brain's reward system lights up like a Christmas tree. The amygdala fires, the hypothalamus dumps stress hormones, and boom, you're alert, terrified, alive. But once your prefrontal cortex realizes you're safe, dopamine steps in and rewards you for surviving. It's like your brain is congratulating itself for not dying during a fake apocalypse. Congrats, champ, you survived The Exorcist. Have some feel-good chemicals. This is why horror can become strangely compulsive. People chase scarier and scarier movies the same way thrill seekers chase higher cliffs to jump off of.
That's why casual horror watches tap out after A Quiet Place, while hardcore horror fans are digging around for obscure Japanese films with names like Evil Centipede Funeral 4. There's even research showing horror fans are more resilient under stress. They've trained their brains to handle adrenaline spikes and then come down smoothly. It's kind of like emotional weightlifting. Each time you watch something terrifying, you're bench pressing fear, and your nervous system says, "Not bad. Let's add 10 more demons next time." But here's the creepy part. Dopamine doesn't just reward you for the end of the scare, it also rewards you for the anticipation. That's why horror movies are so effective. The monster might not even appear for an hour, but you're hooked, squirming in your seat, whispering, "Don't go into the basement, you idiot!" Your brain is already dishing out dopamine just for being on edge. It's like unwrapping a present, except the present is a blood-soaked jump scare. And dopamine explains why horror is paradoxically funnier when shared. You and your friends scream, then burst out laughing at how ridiculous you all looked. That laughter? More dopamine. It's a chemical party, and fear is just the DJ. So in reality, horror movies aren't about demons, slashers, or haunted dolls. They're about brain chemistry. You're not a horror fan, you're a dopamine junkie disguised as a moviegoer. The movie is just the excuse. The real high is in your neurotransmitters, which honestly makes horror marathons sound less like entertainment and more like an extremely nerdy rave inside your skull.
Number 6. Why fear feels funny. Here's something bizarre. People laugh at horror. You jump, you scream, and then 2 seconds later, you're giggling like you just saw a cat fall off a table. What's going on there? Why does terror flip into comedy so fast? Psychologists call this the relief theory of laughter. Basically, your body is a drama queen. When you're scared, your muscles tense, your breathing shortens, your whole body braces for impact. Then, when the threat turns out to be fake, your nervous system says, "Oh, thank God," and you release that tension through laughter. It's like sneezing after holding it in, except the sneeze sounds like nervous chuckles while your friends mock you for spilling soda everywhere. That's why jump scares are such a weird, guilty pleasure. 1 second you're terrified, the next second you're laughing at how terrified you just were. Horror movies create a constant cycle of this: tension, release, tension, release. It's literally engineered like a punchline, except instead of a joke, the setup is someone slowly opening a creaky door. And here's the kicker. Laughter actually bonds people. When you watch a scary movie with friends and you all scream laugh together, your brains pump out endorphins. That's why you leave feeling closer. It's the same mechanism behind soldiers bonding in combat or coworkers bonding over mutual hatred of meetings. Shared stress plus shared laughter equals instant camaraderie. But let's be real, sometimes horror-induced laughter is just your brain glitching. You're not really amused, you're just overwhelmed. Your brain short-circuits like a bad Wi-Fi router and decides laughter is the safest reboot option. Should I keep screaming or just laugh until this demon goes away? Spoiler, demons don't care, but your brain feels better anyway. So yeah, when you laugh during a horror movie, you're not being rude. You're just a human stress balloon letting out air before you explode. Which, honestly, is kind of beautiful, in a totally humiliating way.
Number 5. Our love affair with darkness. Let's be honest, humans are obsessed with the dark. Not just physical darkness, but symbolic darkness. Death, monsters, forbidden knowledge, all the stuff your mom told you not to Google after midnight. And horror taps into that obsession like a moth to a flame, or more accurately, like a moth to a flamethrower. From an evolutionary perspective, darkness meant danger. Predators lurked. Food was scarce. Your ancestors' survival depended on being cautious in the dark. That ancient wiring is still in you. When the lights go off, your imagination fills the void with monsters, burglars, or if you're really unlucky, your Wi-Fi cutting out. Horror exploits this wiring by wrapping stories in shadow. Haunted houses, dimly lit hallways, eerie forests at night. It's all designed to trigger that primal unease. Even sound plays a role. Silence, creaks, whispers. Your brain is so desperate to predict threats in the dark that it basically invents them. That's why you think you see faces in the corner of your room at 3 a.m. Spoiler? It's your laundry pile. Probably. But here's where it gets creepier. Humans actually like flirting with darkness. We romanticize vampires. We binge true crime. We decorate our houses with skeletons every October like that's a normal thing. It's not that we want to live in the dark, it's that we're fascinated by it. Darkness is the unknown, and the unknown is irresistible. Philosophers even argued that horror gives us a safe way to explore death, the one thing we're all guaranteed but never get to practice. Watching horror is like standing at the edge of the abyss and winking at it. You get to flirt with mortality without falling in. And that's why horror never gets old. Technology evolves, special effects improve, but the primal formula stays the same. Darkness plus imagination equals fear. We're wired to dread it, but we're also wired to lean closer, which makes horror not just entertainment, but one of humanity's oldest love affairs. With the shadows, we'll never fully escape.
Number 4. The brain loves predictable chaos. Here's the weirdest contradiction. Horror feels unpredictable, but it's actually one of the most predictable genres out there. You know the creepy little girl is going to appear in the mirror. You know the guy who says, "I'll be right back," is basically signing his death certificate. And yet, when it happens, you still jump like you didn't see it coming. Why? Because your brain loves predictable chaos. It's the same reason people watch sports or reality TV. You don't know exactly how it's going to end, but you know the rules of the game. Horror operates on patterns, jump scares every few minutes, the final girl trope, the slow burn hallway shot where literally nothing good ever happens. Your brain gets the thrill of chaos while secretly basking in structure. It's like ordering chaos off a kid's menu. Scary, but still safe enough to digest. This predictability also makes horror addictive. Every time you call it, like, "Don't open that door, idiot," your brain rewards you with dopamine for being right. You basically get to feel smart for surviving the most obvious setup in cinematic history. Horror turns everyone into a backseat survival expert. And yet, unpredictability sneaks in just enough to keep you hooked. That one character you thought was safe? Gone. That noise you thought was the cat? Not the cat. Your brain hates randomness in real life. Traffic jams, surprise bills, Wi-Fi dropping during Zoom meetings, but in horror, it craves it. Predictable chaos gives your nervous system both safety and suspense in one creepy little bundle. So yeah, horror is basically your brain's version of ordering chaos a la carte. You want just enough to freak out, but not enough to actually ruin your day. Which is why you'll happily scream at a movie for 2 hours, then complain when your real life gets too stressful. Irony at its finest.
Number 3. Curiosity killed the cat, and we're the cat. Let's face it, humans are nosy little gremlins. We can't resist peeking into danger, even when every instinct screams, "Don't." Horror thrives on this exact flaw. The creepy basement, you go down. The old diary with ominous warnings, you read it. The cursed videotape, pop it in, baby. If curiosity killed the cat, we're the cat who keeps responding with even worse judgment. From a psychological standpoint, horror hijacks our curiosity loop. The brain hates unanswered questions. That's why cliffhangers keep you binge-watching until 3 a.m. and why you Google "weird mole on back" even though you know it's going to end badly. Horror dangles mysteries. What's behind the door? What's making that noise? What's haunting this house? And your brain won't let you leave without answers. This is called morbid curiosity. It's the same reason people rubbernecked car crashes or obsess over true crime podcasts. We don't actually want bad things to happen, but if they do, our brains demand front row seats. Evolution probably baked this in as a survival tactic. Curiosity about danger meant learning what not to do. Except now it just means you know 17 different ways to summon a demon, but still forget your Netflix password. And horror directors know this. That's why they make characters do the dumbest possible things. It's not sloppy writing, it's bait. You yell, "Don't go in there," but secretly, you want them to. Because your curiosity is just as reckless. You need to see what happens. If the character didn't go in, you'd feel robbed. So horror thrives because humans are basically danger detectives with zero chill. We can't stop poking the bear, opening the box, or watching the cursed tape. Horror satisfies our morbid curiosity while giving us the comforting relax, it's just a movie. Meanwhile, your brain is already bookmarking tips for when ghosts inevitably show up in your real-life basement.
Number 2, practicing for the apocalypse. You ever notice how horror movies are basically doomsday rehearsals? Zombies, pandemics, haunted houses, alien invasions, pick your flavor of nightmare, horror has a simulation ready. And weirdly, we like running these drills. Watching horror is kind of like joining a survival workshop, except instead of practical tips like pack water, it's more like don't split up, don't read cursed Latin out loud, and definitely don't check the attic alone. Psychologists call this threat simulation theory. The idea is that our ancestors who practiced fear responses, whether through nightmares or scary stories, were more prepared for danger in real life. Horror taps that same instinct. It's training wheels for terror. Your brain rehearses panic without the real stakes, like practicing CPR on a dummy instead of your actual uncle mid-barbecue. And here's the creepy part. It works. Studies show horror fans were calmer and more resilient during the COVID pandemic. While everyone else was stress-baking banana bread and panic-buying toilet paper, horror junkies were like, ah yes, finally my moment. Their brains had already run 1,000 apocalypse simulations. Turns out, if you've watched 28 Days Later enough times, empty grocery stores don't rattle you. Horror also gives you space to mentally rehearse impossible scenarios. What would you do if a demon possessed your microwave? Or if you had to fight a clown with supernatural strength? The answers are useless, sure, but the process of imagining yourself surviving chaos is what matters. It's emotional weightlifting again. You get stronger at handling stress, even if the stress is a chainsaw-wielding maniac who somehow never runs out of gas. So yeah, horror is apocalypse CrossFit. You sweat, you scream, you feel like death is imminent, but at the end you walk away thinking, not bad, I'd probably survive. Spoiler, you wouldn't. But hey, at least you practiced.
Number 1. Death. Served with popcorn. And here's the final truth bomb. Horror is our sneaky way of making peace with death. Yep, the big D. The one thing guaranteed for all of us, but also the one thing we're really bad at talking about. Horror drags it right to the front row, plops it down with extra butter popcorn, and says, look, deal with it. Every horror story is really about mortality. Ghosts, dead people who didn't RSVP to the afterlife. Slashers, walking reminders that life is fragile and knives are sharp. Monsters, allegories for the things that kill us, whether disease, predators, or time itself. Watching horror lets us peek into the abyss without falling in. It's like sitting at the edge of a cliff with a guardrail. Terrifying, but controlled. Some philosophers even argue horror is catharsis, a ritualized way of facing our deepest fear. Instead of ignoring death, we dress it up with soundtracks and special effects. We laugh, we scream, we walk away alive. It's exposure therapy for existential dread. And in some twisted way, it's comforting. Because if we can survive 2 hours of fake death, maybe we can cope with the real thing when it comes knocking. Plus, let's be honest, death has always been entertainment. From gladiator games in Rome to Victorian seances to today's true crime documentaries. Humans can't look away. Horror movies are just the modern packaging. Safe, stylized, available on streaming. You don't have to bury your own skeletons to get your dose of mortality. You just have to click play. So, why do we love horror? Because it hands us the scariest truth in the world, that we're mortal, and lets us snack on it like nachos. We make peace with fear by turning it into entertainment. And that's both the creepiest and most human thing about us. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.